Good afternoon, Phil speaking.
Cooper.
Hi, Mr. Cooper. Can you hear me okay?
I can. How? Am I coming through clearly?
Yes, sir, you are.
Okay, excellent. Now, I just have Patty Schultz here just to take some notes if any are necessary, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, if you're capable of recording the call, I would actually encourage that.
Oh, okay. Well, we aren't planning on recording, but...
Okay, I'll just disclose that I am recording the call.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so do you want to start or should I?
Well, I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll do my best to try to help or respond.
Okay, so I'll start just by providing a little overview of what I'm about to talk about. I'm going to, this is holistically, it's about the Great Reset. It's about what's going on with the lockdowns, with free speech. Holistically, okay, that's what I want to talk about today. There are three specific issues that are bringing me great concern right now. One is regarding the mortgage deferral program. Another one is regarding the Liberal government's current move to censor free speech above and beyond what's already occurring. And the third is I have some serious concerns regarding the upcoming election and how voting is going to work. So before I get into those three specific issues, which are going to kind of come at the end of the call, how much time do we have to talk?
About 20 minutes.
Okay.
I've got another call to get onto.
Okay.
I've just got a whole series of calls this afternoon. Is that sufficient?
Well, we may have to talk more than once, but it gives me at least a good guideline of.
We'll do our best. I'll do my best to try to.
Okay.
What I can within the time we have.
Yep, fair enough. Okay, so I'm going to talk quickly about who I am, what I do, what my specific problem is with what's going on. I'm going to briefly address my COVID concerns, and then I'm going to briefly talk about the three issues that have me contacting you. Okay?
Sure.
So, who I am, my name is Phil Primo. I was born here in Edmonton. I'm a 10th generation pre-Confederation Canadian. I have maternal roots that go back to Trois-Rivières, Quebec, 10 generations ago. And my paternal roots are a mixture of French and English. And I have an ancestor who was part of the fur trade, who went by the name of Louis Primo. These facts are of interest as we go through the conversation, but it's just to frame kind of who I am and where I stand in all of this political mess that we're going through right now. I'm 45 years old. I own a home here in St. Albert, which I have about 30% equity in. I have next to no retirement savings. In fact, I've had to pull out my retirement savings as a result of everything that's going on. And of course, I'm deeply concerned about our future. As I say this, I want to kind of state that I outperform my family and peers. Okay? So I'm a 10th generation Canadian, and yet I outperform them in terms of home ownership, savings, retirement. Okay, and that's kind of a scary thought. Moving on. So what I do, I am trained originally as a programmer. I graduated at NAIT back in 1996 on the Dean's Honor Roll. I developed automated forms processing systems and document management systems for a variety of customers, everything from healthcare, transportation, banking, government. Okay, I segued into a business systems analysis and a data analysis role mid-career, and was focused primarily on records and document and records management, adhering to U.S. Department of Defense Standard 5015.02 and a European standard called MOREC 2. You may recall, and I'll again try to keep this abbreviated, the record scandals that occurred in both the U.S. under Hillary Clinton, as well as in Ontario under Kathleen Wynne. And about that time that these scandals occurred, I kind of walked away from my specialty in records management because it became clear to me that the government is not concerned with the standards that they are designing into their systems. At the end of the day, if people want to make things go away, they just delete them. So, regardless, I walked away from that specialty, and my most recent position was with a local oil field supply company in data analysis, specifically dashboarding and crunching financial data and asset data. It was a great job. I lost that job in April as a result of a combination of the Saudi oil situation, how they were flooding the market, and also in combination with COVID-19. At that time, of course, I applied for a mortgage deferral and applied for all of the federal programs that were made available at that time. And I think I just want to note that at that time, in and about April is when Justin Trudeau announced that he wanted to commandeer basically democracy until the end of 2021, which it looks like he's going to do anyways, but he just backed away from his ask. So, I'm noting that democracy has been shut down. Our parliament is only partially functioning. The legislatures are the same, and all of our municipal houses are, in fact, the same. I'm unable to actually go to my municipal council and argue that what's going on is damaging to the community. And I find the same with the provincial legislature, and it appears to be that way federally. So what is my problem? Well, I feel that the federal government is working against my interests as a 10th generation Canadian. And my ability to demand change is being shut down. It seems that corruption is not being held to account. I'm up to speed on all of the scandals, the WE scandal and the SNC Lavalin scandal and so on and so forth. And it appears to me that, basically because Justin Trudeau has appointed the RCMP commissioner, that nothing is going to come of it. Now, it's not just democracy that's been shut down. The courts have been shut down to a crawl. So I'm, in fact, closely following the JCCF case against the Alberta government. And I sat through the 10 hours hearing for the injunction online. I was one of the attendees. And I listened to that, and it sounds to me like the judge is going to move forward with a hearing about whether all of these restrictions are demonstrably justified. However, we don't have a date for when any of this stuff's going to be addressed, and we've got the Premier of Alberta. He's just kicking the can down the road on the whole COVID thing. So its democracy has been suspended, the courts have been suspended, and here I am now adversely affected on this in a number of ways. One, through the mortgage deferral. Now all of a sudden I've lost my last year of equity down payment. I'm now facing all kinds of interest charges, so on and so forth. Well, I'm also a data analyst, so I've been stuck at home watching this fiasco occur, and I've been following all of the leading minds on COVID, on the data behind COVID, what the actual risks are, and I am convinced as a professional and as a citizen of this country that we're being taken for a ride by the government. That what we have, in fact, is a problem with long-term health care facilities, old age facilities in particular, where that's where our focus should be, and instead what the government is doing is crippling citizens and creating a crisis where we're not allowed to speak out against these things. We're declared racist for having a conservative opinion that dictates that the UN is trying to take over our country. Okay, and that's where this all rolls up to the UN and the World Economic Forum. People aren't stupid. We're aware of what's going on, and we're angry about it, right? So that's kind of just an overview of who I am, what my problem is here. Now, specifically with COVID, I'll just make a few points. It's got a mortality similar to flu. It may be more. It may be as much as 2 times more than flu. However, compared to other mortality categories, both for Canada and specifically Alberta, it is really, it's not statistically significant, in my professional opinion. Masks don't prevent transmission of coronavirus. There are different types of masks. Ear loop masks are completely useless unless you're sick. The next mask up, sorry, it's not coming to me right now, but the next mask up does prevent transmission if it's properly fit tested to the person's face, right? So we know that's kind of, that the cat's out of the bag on that, right? The vaccine itself is high risk. It puts citizens at risk. It is untested, it is experimental, and it's technically not a vaccine. Because in Anthony Fauci's own words, it is not a prophylactic, right? Whereas a typical vaccine is a prophylactic. It provides a certain percent of effectiveness. And this is actually creating a COVID-generating station within each person's body. Now, we're not going to go too much into detail on that. The JCCF is taking that on, obviously, with multiple provinces. And the facts are out. The lockdowns basically are, in my opinion, to destroy the country by design. The World Economic Forum has come out and said what the Great Reset is, and we've got Klaus Schwab, and we've got Prince Charles, who is backing that. And the bottom line is Canada is not an independent country. There's royal privilege. The Crown is directing what is happening here. And I, as a citizen born to this nation, 10 generations on down the line, am going, what the heck is going on here? Nobody can get ahead, and you guys are making it worse. Okay, so now specifically about the 3 problems that I'd like you to take away at least today, and maybe this is the start of the conversation. My mortgage deferral was for 6 months, so that was the intention. It was applied for at the beginning of May. So that would have taken me through to the end of November, and I was under the impression that the mortgage deferrals were for 6 calendar months. That's not what the bank honored. The bank honored actually 13 payments based on a biweekly mortgage schedule. You follow me thus far?
Yes.
Okay. So at the end of the deferral period, then they should have begun rebilling based on the recalculated mortgage, the new, whatever the new principal and interest calculations were. And what they ended up doing is they screwed up, and they, I guess, didn't restart the mortgage on time, and they had also, instead of doing a 6 calendar month, they did the 13 periods. What it came down to is that my first 2 payments were within 2 weeks of each other in December, and I paid 5 mortgage payments in a 2-week period. Okay, so to me, there's something wrong with that mortgage deferral program. If I'm being deferred only to be charged almost half of the deferral period in a single 2-week period, that is putting me in financial peril. And it seems to me that the Bank of Canada is bailing out the banks, not the homeowners. I have an uninsured mortgage. That puts me in great peril. And I have an uninsured mortgage because I have more than 20% equity. And so I'm being set adrift by the government and the Bank of Canada, in my view. So that's the first item, and we can follow up after the call with details about the bank. I have been to the bank and filed a complaint. And further to that, the mortgage deferral program, there was no signature, there was no terms. It was applied for online to apply for the program, and then it was a one-way communication by letter. There was no somebody called me into the bank, so I can now understand the terms of this mortgage deferral. So I feel that on some level, the entire process is fraud. It's fraud because I never signed anything, and I just seem to be being penalized. And in my view, if depending on how the JCCF case goes, I intend to sue the government for the damage, for monetary compensation for the damage they've caused me, right? So there's that issue. The communications issue. So I'm currently in Facebook jail for sharing a meme of Justin Trudeau, and I've sent that to your Facebook account. Okay, you haven't seen my last 6 messages, but I've sent screenshots of my predicament on Facebook. And basically, what I shared, it was very similar to that billboard that's currently getting some attention out in Ontario right now, the one that's depicting Justin as a Nazi.
I'm not sure of that specific one. But,
okay, well, it's in the news right now. Ezra Levant is talking about it.
Okay.
So what I shared is it's a very popular meme. I sent it to your Facebook account so you can look at it after this call. But basically, all it is, it's a Photoshop photo of Justin in one of his World War I costumes from one of his acting gigs, and they've changed it to a pink uniform, given him a Hitler mustache, and then put a swastika on his arm that's in rainbow. Okay, so it's a very popular meme online. A lot of conservatives share it because it is political satire. It's basically comparing the last 5 years of Justin Trudeau's rule to the onslaught of fascism in early 1930s Germany, and I think it's valid political commentary. But I've been locked off of Facebook because somebody didn't like it, or because a swastika was there. Whatever the case may be. Now that's a Facebook doing that. Okay. And currently the government is talking about censoring hate speech. Well, I'm already being censored and being accused of hate speech. And it seems like that's my right to free expression, artistic free expression, to share these kinds of things, and yet I'm in Facebook jail. 30 days. I've been restricted in the last year. Almost 6 months out of the last year I've been restricted from using Facebook, and it has real social consequences. Not just I can't be a loudmouth on my Facebook page. I can't communicate with my loved ones. And now being put in a lockdown situation where I cannot communicate with my loved ones, you guys are putting my life at risk. There's a chance I could kill myself over this shit, but I am stronger than that, and I'm fucking here, and I'm here to stand up. I've had enough, okay? I've got friends and family that are in the medical community, that are teachers, that are afraid to stand up about this. They're afraid because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs. They're afraid this thing is going to go full Nazi, and people are going to go to jail. And that cannot continue. It must not continue. Not in the place of my birth. It's not going to happen. Okay? So there's that, and I'm sorry I'm getting a little emotional here, but I've been prepping for this thing for about 5 hours now. So now Parler has been taken down. Parler was my secondary communication source, and arbitrarily a third party, Amazon.com or Amazon whatever, has now interfered with my ability to communicate freely. Facebook has taken it away. Here's the government telling me they're going to go harder. Well, what more when did the gulags start, right? So I feel that my right to communication across borders has been interfered by a third party, and I feel that the CRTC should have something to say about that. That some third party private corporation just because they're having a squabble in the U.S. doesn't mean they have a right to interfere with my communications. So that's the secondary follow-up. And now, finally, to wrap up the third point. The third point is in regards to the election. So I'm following along with everybody else that's been censored the U.S. election, and there is, contrary to what our media is saying and what the American media is saying, there is real evidence. I know there's real evidence because I've sat and watched the hearings online. I've heard the witness testimony, the people that have all signed affidavits. There is real evidence, and it is incredibly disconcerting to people that our public media is carrying a message that there is no evidence of fraud. There is significant evidence of fraud, and it all revolves around voting changes to what voter ID, changes to confirming if a voter is lawful, and I believe some of those changes have been made in recent years regarding voter ID since Trudeau's been in. I'd like a report on what the status is of our voting rules before too much time goes by, because if we're going to be suddenly thrown into an election year, people need to understand whether we are looking at the potential of the same fiasco that's going on in the United States right now. And that is a very dangerous situation indeed, not only to us but to the people of that country. So I don't really want to see it replicated here, and I'm not going to tolerate an election. As an angry now citizen, I'm no longer crying. I'm angry. I'm not going to tolerate with our election being messed with. So I'd like to know what the rules are. I want to publicize those rules, and if there's other upcoming changes like mail-in voting because of this whole COVID thing, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen.
I think, well, to that last point, I think the government's going to be bringing in legislation regarding changes to the Canada Elections Act.
Well, and so they're basically putting us in a position, Mr. Cooper, where we have no recourse. Okay? This is fascism. If we have no recourse, you are putting us, the people, in a position where we have to openly rebel against our government. Right? That's kind of where we're at. And we all know that, the NDP is propping up the government, that is the primary reason why Justin Trudeau is not facing justice on his corruption charges. He's not facing investigation and most certain expulsion from his position as Prime Minister. Right? Like, if he's investigated, there's no way he can stand. I'm old enough to remember the sponsorship scandal. And I'm old enough to remember Mike Duffy and the $90,000 payment. We are talking about billions of dollars here. At the end of the day, if we start tallying up all of the various incidences of corruption, to me that's treason. From where I stand, that's treason. We got a trust fund silver spoon trust fund baby running the country. He's never had a real job. Here's me, 10th generation Canadian. I've had a real job my entire life, and I'm about to lose my house. Right? Like, something's got to give. You are putting me in a position where I have to take up arms. That's what I feel like. So I'm going to calm down now, because I don't want to do that. Nobody wants that. But what is happening here is forcing the people's hands, in my opinion. So I've probably eaten up the 20-minute time. If you can take away this commentary, reflect upon it, and then provide a response, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, Phil, and you've touched on a number of issues in terms of the mortgage deferral program. What has been the response of your financial institution?
So I have not heard back from them. They told me it would take a week or two. Okay. At this point, I told them that I was going to be meeting with you, and one step at a time, I guess. So,
and the next step, just in terms of following the process, would be to file a complaint with the Financial Consumer Agency.
The Financial Consumer Agency, okay.
Right. Yeah.
And would you say that there would be any logic to doing the same with the CRTC regarding what's going on with Parler and Facebook?
No, only because it doesn't officially fall within the jurisdiction of the CRTC. They don't regulate internet content.
Right. So, is there a body at all that would look after the rights of individual citizens to consume internet services provided in third-party countries? You know, like what are our rights? Is it undefined?
Well, I think it's a good question you ask, and I think the answer to that is we're in sort of this uncharted, this territory that we're in, where we have these big tech companies that seemingly have more power in some instances than governments, and so there's no body that I could refer you to in terms of the Canadian federal government to address this issue. I think that in terms of the issues involving Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, what happened with respect to Parler, all of these things, if this is going to come down to antitrust, it may come down to RICO, racketeering. In certain instances, I mean, they're arguably, they were involved in racketeering, and certainly antitrust in a U.S. context.
Right, and I guess my expectation as a citizen in the Canadian context is that my government should defend my right to be able to access services.
Yeah.
But it is in Trudeau's interest to make sure that those things go down, because then people aren't talking about all of the things that are unpopular to his re-election. And then I'd further kind of extrapolate on that I've got serious concerns with your leader, Erin O'Toole. So I was a Conservative Party member, and I know that we've spoken before, and I mentioned to you that I'm not planning on renewing that membership, because Mr. O'Toole is not hearing my voice, and my voice is Ezra Levant's voice.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's a big, serious problem. Now, I realize that Ezra Levant maybe did a boo-boo by releasing Erin's press secretary's phone number, and that he should maybe get a little slap on the wrist for that. But I'm sorry, Erin. Ezra speaks for us. He's raising all the issues. That's kind of my message there. So, anyways, I digress.
I hear you, and I don't agree with the policy to not talk to rebel media or to not talk to any news media. I talk to any media, including left-wing media. I mean, look, I'll talk to whoever makes an inquiry of me. So I just don't quite understand the logic around it, but.
Well, I think the logic is that as long as they can continue to shut people up, they get what they're going for with this Great Reset. And unfortunately, I think that the solution is Comer versus Bank of Canada, right? Are you familiar with that particular case that ended in, I think, 2015?
Remind me of it. I not.
Okay, so Rocco Galati, who is you should be familiar with because he's among the people suing Ontario. Yeah. He took a case called the Committee on Monetary and Economic Reform. So he took a case on their behalf against the Bank of Canada to basically say that under Pierre Elliott Trudeau, the Bank of Canada Act was circumvented by Finance Minister Jean Chrétien to take debt creation or debt lending from the Bank of Canada, who is lending to governments with a credit limit of 30% to be repaid the following year, which kept inflation very low. They went to this international financial model where instead the private banks are creating money by lending to governments. And of course, that's our big problem right now, is governments just keep borrowing, money that is created out of thin air at nothing and paying interest to international banks and their shareholders, which is basically thieving productivity from the taxpayer. And it's never ending, right? The more corruption, the more lending, the more payoff for the banksters, right? So, I mean, the solution is to pull away from the international banking system, not to double down on it with the Vatican and the Rothschilds in their inclusive capitalism. So there's a video they've put out. It's unlisted. I'm happy to forward it to you. You know, there's a cabal. This stuff is real, and you know, we're not pretending anymore. That's my message.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I must take the next call because I'm 10 minutes late for that. I apologize for having to end the conversation now, but in terms of the mortgage issue, that's what I would suggest. Wait to see what you hear back from your financial institution, then proceed to the Financial Consumer Agency. Certainly keep my office in the loop in terms of the status of that and what response you receive as a starting point. And as I say, on the CRTC, I've given you an answer there. I know it's not a satisfactory one, but it's the only answer I can give. I think those were the two key points, aside from a number of other points that I certainly take note of and acknowledge that you've raised.
Yeah. So again, just as you leave, just if you could respond to me with all of the information regarding the voting rule changes, specifically around COVID and identification, because we need to publicize that information. People need to know about it.
I don't think all of there's no. We're waiting to see what the government does in that sense.
Okay.
So right. There's not an answer I can give you, but I do believe that where it is going, if we have an election this spring, the government will greatly expand mail-in voting.
Okay. All right. Listen, I'll let you go, but let's chat again.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.